Joined by our good friend here, Roger Wallace out of Austin, Texas. First off, Roger, this is one of those weird, kind of head-scratching, puzzling games. But if you're an optimist, at the end of the day, you got what you wanted. You got the W on the scoreboard. Break down what you saw there in Lexington.
Yeah, it was a hard watch because we equate more things with offense than defense. And if you flip it to A&M and Arkansas 45-42, it was just a fun shootout, right?
Right.
Well,
right.
this was a 3-point ball game. Granted, it was in overtime, but it was like both teams were kind of stuck in the mud, so a different perspective on it. And Kentucky did a lot of things that they hadn't done this year. Primarily, they stopped the run, and Texas looked like they'd figure some things out against a pretty good Oklahoma defense with the run, and they couldn't do anything running the ball against a team that was giving up over 190 yards per game on the ground in their three SEC games. It was a struggle offensively. Steve Sarkisian, a lot of questions answered about the offense, his role in the offense, and the defense bailed them out. And they played, I think, 89 plays on defense, guys. And arguably their last four were their best.
Yeah.
So plays 89, 88, 87, 86 was a goal line stand in overtime. So in that regard, they've got a really good defense, but it's being overshadowed by the continual struggles, A, on the offense, and B, by, as we've talked about, the most talked about player in college football over the summer.
Yeah, with Arch Manning, one of the things that you mentioned during the break, and I thought it was a great point, the fact that this might be probably his worst performance, and it looked like there were some answers there. Even in the loss against Florida a couple of weeks ago, he looked solid, but obviously 26-8 as far as first down comparisons, less than 200 yards overall for this Texas offense. What do you make of Arch, the struggles, and where he is now compared to where he was just a few weeks ago?
Yeah, that's an interesting question because, yeah, Florida, people pointed toward, and if they watched the game, you might have a different perspective because he did make some plays, and he was under duress all game long, and we kind of saw that again this week. Kentucky, they're just, sending the house just about every play, and I think that's the way teams are going to play them. And for some reason, they had the answers to the test against Oklahoma. Now, I say that they only scored one offensive touchdown against Oklahoma, but they moved the ball. They made plays through the air. He was efficient, and they moved the ball a little. It was funny. Sark said all of our problems have been third and short. Well, we converted several third and long, or rather their problems have been third and long. They put themselves, behind the chains. They actually converted more of those than they did third and less than 6 yards. That was a problem, and that kind of goes back to the running game and some misses by Arch. And I'm not going to say it's all Arch because, everybody plays a role in it. But he looked miserable after the game, and he sat up there and answered the questions, but his body language said, man, get me out of here, because he knows, all the fire that's coming his way again. But the defense was outstanding. A couple of goal line stands, not just the one in overtime, but the first possession. They got so many playmakers on defense, but now they go to Mississippi State, and everybody's wondering, okay, can they score more than 2 touchdowns in a ball game?
Right. And Mississippi State has been a team that's been very dangerous over the last few weeks. When it comes to Arch and his frustrations, and you illustrated that really well, and Sark and maybe his frustrations with the way that the offense is moving under his tutelage, are these some of the issues that they think are fixable moving forward? Is that part of the frustration, or is it because they think that they might have hit a ceiling in some regards and they have to look for something different to do holistically?
Well, if they say it's not fixable, they're not going to say it out loud.
Yeah.
That would go over in this town. No, I think they can, and I think there's been some evidence of that. They hope to get C.J. Baxter back, if not this week, then for Vanderbilt. I don't know how big of a difference that's going to make, but Trey Wisner ran for over 90 against Oklahoma. He was ineffective against Kentucky, and his touchdown was reviewed because the ball popped out. Originally they awarded it to their offensive lineman, DJ Campbell. Then they flipped it back because they said no fumble. But regardless of that, I think they think so. I think they think they've got good enough players, good enough scheme in all areas. But it has been not just an inconsistent struggle. It's been a consistent struggle.
Right.
When you think about Ohio State 14-7, shut out in the first half, and then you play your 3 non-conference group of 5 or whatever you want to call them games, and the offense was most part fine, other than that stretch against UTEP where Arch got all the attention for the struggles. Then you come back against Florida, and you don't score an offensive touchdown till the second half. You you get back in it. But again, offense was a struggle. And Oklahoma, you score 3 points in the first half, and you see where I'm going with this. Yeah. 7 points in the first half on a short field, a 5-yard drive for a touchdown after the Niblett punt return on Saturday. So it's just they've not been able to sustain drives and punch it in the end zone. Fortunately, at 5-2, they've got a real good kicking game. They've got a great defense. They've got an outstanding punter, and now they've got what seems to be one of the most dangerous return guys in college football.
Absolutely. We'll dive into some of the positives with the defense and the special teams just in a second here. But first, we got a chance to hear from head coach Steve Sarkisian about the offense and accountability.
You know, at the end of the day, offensively, I've got to do a better job. I've got to do a better job putting all of our players in position to be successful. And that's blocking people. That's throwing the ball to open people. That's running routes precisely where they need to be. So that's on nobody but me. And so that's when you can look in the mirror first and say, okay, I'm responsible to try to fixed and get better at it. I'm very comfortable with that.
Have you ever thought about taking that thing off of your plate? And if so, why not?
Because that's why I got hired. I was a really good offensive coordinator. So I believe in what we're able to do. You know, every year we have to continually evolve, and there's years we're going to be better on offense than we are on defense. There's going to be years we're better on defense than we are on offense. And so if that's one of your strengths, I'm always going to tap into the strength that I have. And I think, being a play caller on offense is one of my strengths. Some may disagree. That's okay.
I think it was really interesting there, the fact that, number one, the question was posed, even though, I think his track record's spoken for itself, that maybe 6 or 7 games should not be able to dictate if he should release the playbook, so to speak. But what is your take about Steve Sarkisian, where he is right now? He was defiant, but not in a Brian Kelly sort of way with that answer. But what's your take on just him overall and just the way that he will handle everything, whether there are changes to the way he calls things, maybe calling less plays for Arch to the passing game, more running plays? What do you think the ways that he'll change things up, if at all?
Yeah, and the way it was worded, the question was from Anwar Richardson from Orange Bloods, was, kind of the job of a head coach now is so big. Yeah. The whole, CEO thing. And it's been that way for a long time. Mac Brown famously here was outstanding at that for a long stretch. But now there's seemingly more on the plate. So it wasn't just offense is struggling. Are you willing to give up play calling? And a lot of coaches evolve into that. I think Nick Saban evolved into that, obviously a defensive mind, and eventually he turns things over. Pete Carroll, a defensive mind, eventually he turns things over, and I think you could flip it over on the offense with a lot of coaches. But right now, Sark feels the most comfortable that he's the guy that calls the plays. And if you think you're the best at that job, then you're going to be the one that calls the plays. There Absolutely. Might be a time in his career as he gets older and as things change that maybe he does relinquish those duties. But that was his point, is that, I think this is my strength, and I want my strength to continue to be part of our success. And obviously right now that's the big question mark with this team moving forward. If, in fact, they can scrape their way into the conversation, if they win against Mississippi State, then they come home against a really good Vanderbilt team. But if you get that one, then you get to the bye, all of a sudden you're back in the conversation. Right. You're going to have another road win, and you're going to have a win over, if they're not top 10 in a couple of weeks, they'll be top 15, who maybe they're top 8.
Right.
But all that said, and, they talked after the game, Michael Taft, their fifth-year safety, Sark said he reminded me in the locker room that Georgia, on their way to an SEC championship, went to Lexington and won 13-12. Yeah.
Yes.
So
exactly.
Those are great stories to kind of reinforce the point that this was a better win than a lot of people are thinking it is. But you're not going to change the opinions of people that have watched this offense struggle for the better part of the season. So I don't know if Sark, he's not gotten to the point of defiant as much as explaining his thought process on why he continues to be the play caller and the offensive coordinator.
For sure. I think he's handled that really well. So speaking of things that are done well, so far right now, the defense has been really strong. I know they gave up nearly 400 yards the other day, but as you mentioned, they played well when it mattered down late. And the special teams has been awesome as well, with both Mason Shipley and Ryan Niblett. Shipley, the kicker, of course, and Niblett, the punt returner. What do you make of the other two phases of the football game where they're able to rely on with the offense struggling?
Yeah, and you're right. You bring up a good point about the defense. They did give up drives, but Kentucky couldn't punch it in on the first drive. I think Kentucky fans were really frustrated when they, went for it on fourth down. And I questioned a little bit, guys, the decision to go for it. And I know he had to do it in that stadium. They were ready to erupt against him, kind of like Florida. But the way Texas was playing offense, you kick that field goal in overtime, and easy to be. Let's just put it this way: I thought they might kick the field goal, thinking that at worst they're going to give up a field goal to Texas, because at worst that's what happened.
Right.
You pretty much lose the game unless disaster for Texas. Now, Texas almost had disaster because they had a holding penalty on first down in overtime. So all of a sudden it's 1st and 20 from the 35. You're thinking, okay, what's the one thing they can't afford to do? Turn it over, and penalties that make the kick tougher. But the defense made a lot of plays. Ball was on the ground 4 times, and they didn't recover a fumble. Anthony Hill had a scoop and score, but I don't know if the ball might have been kicked a little bit or he just whiffed on it. They got the interception from Hill. They got to Cutter Boley. They gave up some chunk plays at the end when Kentucky got that drive. But for the most part, this has been a really good defense, especially down in the red zone. They play a ton of players. They played nearly 90 snaps, and they play a ton of players, and I think that paid off in the end. And then, Niblett has been special, especially the last 2 weeks. Punt returns, guy that we talked about, almost left the program in the offseason.
Right.
Mason Shipley is a local kid from outside of Austin who's, a couple of stops along the way, including Texas State, which is about 30 miles to the south of here. So obviously he's been huge. And then the punter, Jack Bomeister, the Utah transfer, also doing a great job for Texas as a transfer. He's also the holder on the extra points and field goals. So, 2 phases have been good and at times excellent and at times great. One phase at best has been okay, and that's why they're 5-2 and not really in the conversation other than, kind of a punching bag.
Roger, I know there were some people that were kind of surprised when the AP poll came out yesterday and Texas was still in the top 25. Does that surprise you at all, seeing how they played against Kentucky?
No, I think you still have to give them a little credit for a win. On the road.
Yeah.
I'm not gonna preach the on the road and the SEC at night, but they did go on the road and win.
Yeah.
And they went on the road and they won a close ball game, like Ole Miss did in Lexington earlier in the year. And so, if you don't like the way they look and you want to vote them lower for that, I get it. These guys all have their own opinions. I know a few AP voters in town, and they tell me stories about their email box just gets filled up with their, decisions, one school or another. No, I mean, they did drop after a win on the road at night in the SEC. So there was some of that, as you say, Patrick. But I'm not surprised. And really, what does it matter if they're 20, 21, 22, 23?
Right.
If they beat Mississippi State 13-10, then okay, that's who Texas is. And if they lose, they'll drop out, and they'll, all the talk will be about, what a lost season it was from preseason number 1.
Yeah, and obviously you mentioned the schedule ahead. I mean, you still have 3 teams that are right now currently in the top 10 still left on the schedule. Is there a sense of positivity when the whole world is thinking, okay, well, Texas is not this team that we thought, early in the season? They're drumming this game up as the game of the century with Texas and Ohio State. Obviously, Ohio State has not lost, and Texas has seemed to struggle. Is there some positivity that, hey, look, we can still have plenty of opportunities to show the world that we were who people thought we were at the beginning of the season, with big games with like Vanderbilt and Georgia up next?
Yeah, I think the fan base, there's just a level of frustration because of the way it looks. And so until they see, I think they got fired up for the Oklahoma win, because I think people thought they were in a bad place going into that game, and Oklahoma had Mateer back, and they had a lot of momentum, and they had a much better defense than when Texas blew them out last year. And so now it's kind of back to what happened with Florida, although they managed to get a win. So I'll go back to what I said. If they could come home against Vanderbilt with the win under their belt from Starkville, first time they're going to play it at home in 5 weeks. So that place will be ready to roll. It's an 11 a.m. kick. That's not great here. But, yeah, I think that momentum will build if they get a couple more before, they close it out. Georgia, Arkansas, Texas A&M, the last 2 in Austin. But,
right.
The way they're going, they need to figure things out. And if they can sneak out of Starkville with a win and end this 3-1. I would say this, guys. if they go 3-1 on this stretch, and you asked any Longhorn fan, you can have a 3-1. How would you like to have it? My guess is this is it.
Yep.
Lose to Florida right off the bat, and then win 3 in a row coming home. Now, I'm sure Sark and his guys thought they could, run the table, thought that offensively they'd get some things figured out. Lost their center midweek last week. Again,
Right.
That's just a fact. That's not making an excuse for them, but that's a fact that it happened in Cole Hudson. So they changed centers in practice on Wednesday with Connor Robertson, and I don't think Hudson will be ready. He was on crutches. They may get Baxter back, like I said, but I'm not gonna buy the stats, guys. I look, Mississippi State's given up a lot of yards on the ground. I'm not buying that.
Right.
After what happened against Kentucky, their defense is going to play much faster against Texas at home.
Yep.
I think they're going to do. Their second leading receiver started his career at Texas, Brendan Thompson.
That's true.
That's right.
Yeah.
He's the one that had that big touchdown to beat Arizona State.
Yep.
In the non-conference, he went to Oklahoma, so he's got that Texas taste out of his mouth by the by being north of the Red River. But we'll see if they can figure it out and get one more road win before coming home for this final stretch.
Yeah, it could be a big statement there for the Longhorns. Before we get you out of here, we want to zoom out a little bit and change sports to baseball. We got Game 7 today.
I thought you would
tonight.
zoom out because my
No. It's a figurative speech about the baseball game tonight, Game 7. You got Mariners, you got Blue Jays for the right to face the Dodgers in the Fall Classic. Who do you got tonight?
I like Seattle. I like their story. I think they're a fun team. Toronto, I got nothing against Toronto, but
Yeah.
I like Seattle. Watching them down the stretch in the AL West race because of the Astros.
Right.
And I just think that that's a cool story. Not sure anybody's going to be able to, handle the Dodgers in the World Series, but I like the Mariners, even though it's a road game.
Yeah, I'm right there with you. I want to see the last team to not have a pennant, to be able to get one here today. Roger, thank you so much for your time and your expertise on the Texas Longhorns, and looking forward to a big game in Starkville this weekend.
All right, thanks, guys. Tell Simone, hope she's enjoying herself.
Yeah, will do.
Will do.
See ya.
Roger Wallace out of Austin, Texas, with putting I think a nice analyst bow on this, because if you're just looking at a score, if you're just looking at stats, it might be a little deceiving when you watch this Texas team.
Yeah, I mean, you just can't trust anything. And I mean, any given Saturday, anybody can beat anybody. But I mean, Texas, if the offensive struggles continue this weekend,
Right.
I think some conversations need to be had about, okay, who is going to be under center going forward.
Yeah, and as of right now, it looks like that Arch might be taking a couple of steps back here. We'll see if he can get back on track against Mississippi State this week. If you're looking for a line as of right now, Texas, a 6.5-point favorite going into that one, so just under the touchdown. As we sit here on a Monday, still lots of days to go before that one kicks off in Starkville.